Hey everyone, Pastor Dino here. Today's Unscripted episode is a special one now. See, I wasn't able to be in the room for this conversation, which I wish I was, but it's going to be an incredible treat for you today. Our team sat down with none other than Carey Nieuwhof, who's one of the most trusted voices in leadership and church health today. Carey has spent decades serving the local church, and now he's investing also in leaders around the world, helping pastors and church planters lead with clarity, courage, and grace, and wisdom. He's just a gift of the body of Christ. I'm just so thankful the way he champions the church and strong leaders. And today, you're excited because I'll tell you something. Hosting today's conversation are Marc Cleary, none other than the one Marc Cleary, our director of church planting, and then also sitting in is Noah Herrin. He and Maddie have planted a great church, Way Church, there in Nashville, and is one of our church planters doing a great job. You're going to love this discussion, so let's jump into it.
Hello everyone, Marc Cleary, Director of Church Planning for ARC. We are here in sunny California, Carlsbad, wrapping up day one of an ARC launch event where we're training dozens and dozens of future church planners. And we are thrilled to have Carey Nieuwhof join us today. He just finished up a session teaching about some church trends that he is seeing happening, and it was a phenomenal session. And we're going to do a little deep dive into those topics. And really excited to have a little co-host with me here too.
Come on.
Noah Herrin, ARC family, man,
Yeah.
ARC Church Plant, Way Church in
Yeah.
Nashville, Tennessee,
Yeah.
ARC Church Plant.
1,080.
Boom, he and his wife Maddie doing a phenomenal job. Their church recently grew by one because they had their third child.
We did.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Carey, Noah's going to be helping me out a little bit as we interview, but we're
Awesome.
thrilled to have you on this episode of Unscripted. And
Ready for the cross-examination.
Come on.
Exactly, and you say that
Two
because,
defense attorneys.
Yeah, because you started out as a lawyer
I did.
in law school, and since then you felt that call of God on your life in law school. You've pastored, you started a great church in Canada, you are an author, phenomenal books, lead a great podcast. Like a lot of people do podcasts, but Carey Nieuwhof, Noah, does like
different.
a podcast. Yeah,
different level.
Like if I led one, there'd be one person a month that listens to it. My wife. I think a little over 1.5 million people
Yeah,
subscribe
pretty
and
amazing.
Pretty
listen
amazed.
and use it as an amazing resource. I would like to start out first by tell us a little bit about that journey, you being in law school, and from that call to now. Tell us a little bit about that journey in your life.
I thought that was going to be my life, becoming an attorney. When I was 8, I just got in my head, this was pre-internet. You don't know you have any options. I'm like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I didn't even know what that meant, but I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do it. And it was a good paying job and respectable. And my parents, being both immigrants from Holland, you want that oldest son to do well, and lawyers sounded good to them. So went to law school. I remember I was dating a woman at the time when I was an undergrad, and she goes, why do you want to go to law school? And I'm like, I had no idea. It was just weird. I'm like, because I want to help people. Total lie. I just made it up because it sounded good. I thought, why do I want to go to law school? But I got into the law school I wanted to get into. You apply to 5, but it's like, if I get into this one. So I got into that one. And that's where I met my wife, Tony. She and I were first-year students. And then it was in between first and second year I felt a call to ministry, which was total shocker. So by that time, recommitted my life to Christ in my early 20s. But I was going to be a Christian lawyer if there was such a thing. So I thought there was. But then, Presbyterian background, had a series of supernatural events happen, charismatic events, dreams, visions, which of course as a Calvinist, I just doubted, but they kept testing as legit and they kept coming. So I finished law, got called to the bar, resigned, went into seminary, and then thought I'd teach because I don't have pastoral gifts, really. I'm not a warm, empathetic human. So I'm like, I'll just teach, I'll be an academic. But we found these 3 little churches north of Toronto that were looking for a student pastor when I was halfway through seminary. Went up there, a place called Oro Medonti, no one's ever heard of, and haven't left over the last 30 years. I took over 3 Presbyterian churches that we left the denomination, morphed and replanted as Connexus Church, and that's still going very strong to this day. I'm not on staff anymore, but we have the privilege of being involved. So that's and then, when I pivoted out of the lead pastor role in 2015, really started focusing on leaders. It was a hobby till that point. Now it's full-time what I do and just love it.
Come on. It's incredible. One of the things I love about you, Carey, is you have such a gift of looking at culture, seeing things that are coming before they come, and then you disperse it to the rest of us so that we're prepared. And we're here at an event with church planters. There's a ton of church planters that are listening. Are there any church planting trends that you've got your eye on that we should be thinking about when it comes to the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, definitely. One of them that I have my eye on is the non-derivative church, and anybody can come up with a better name for it, but I would be open to that. A decade ago, it was sort of cookie cutter planting. You just have to have the worship team, the lights, the sound. Yeah. Here's how you should do your sermon. All of our church plants looked the same. And I think we saw diminishing returns on that starting in the late 2010s and certainly post-COVID. And what I'm seeing now is God moving in a variety of creative ways. Noah, I think your church is one of them. I've seen a number of other churches that are just, it's like, yeah, you have good musicians and you got a cool LED wall. You preach well. It's recognizable, but it's not just, oh, here's the playbook. I did exactly what they said. We did exactly this song in this way. And it's less formulaic. And I think that way it's a little more, I think God's using our individual personalities. Now, if you have bad sound and a bad music team and you didn't sermon prep and your lights are all pointed in the wrong direction, I don't think it's going to go well. But that doesn't guarantee growth. The Holy Spirit has always brought growth, but I think he's using our unique personality. So I would say that's one trend I've seen. The other thing I would say is slow is pro. And in church planting, this is ARC data. It is really big because it's very, especially in America where you can do anything you want, whenever you want. It's like, we're going to set up tomorrow and we'll incorporate, get our 501(c), and then our first Sunday is 2 weeks from now. Yeah. Boom. Great. And that's been tried. And once in a while, maybe 1 in a million times, it's successful. But what we found, and you guys have data on this, and I think I'm going to get it somewhat right from memory because I just taught on this. But if you launch with $70,000 on average, you'll have 50 people in your first year of attendance. Yeah. If you launch with $300,000 raised, you will have on average 500 or more in your first year. And so you can look at that and go, well, are you just buying people? What is that? You got to pay to play? No. Think about what it takes to raise $70,000 versus $300,000. It's going to take you longer, slow as pro. And let's assume that there's no musician, athlete, superstar that wrote you a big, fat $500,000 check. Let's just assume it was $1,000 at a time, $20 at a time, $10,000 at a time that got you to $300,000. What have you got if that's the case? You have a much larger core. Yeah. You have a core that's committed. You've had more time to communicate the vision. Because you have a larger core, that core knows more unchurched people than your 20 people who raised $70,000. So they're going to invite more people. So it all makes sense, but it's going to take you time. And I don't know whether you found this as a church planner. You probably had to go through V1, V2, and V3, or at least V1A, version 1B, version 1C of your vision and vision casting before you got it right. So those are two trends I got my eye on.
I'd love to unpack the non-derivative one, because what I'm curious is we've seen that trend too. I've kind of described it as, in addition to what you said, there seems to be a renewed love for your community.
Yes.
Like the faces, the people, the stories. Yeah. How do you, or what would you recommend for pastors that either want to plant in the coming years or are just starting? How do they find that it is okay to add this element or not do this the cookie cutter way, but you still want the systems and the structure, like you said.
You can make some fundamental mistakes that are going to sink you.
Right, because the Holy Spirit will still, but you want the Holy Spirit to have room to operate, but you still need that system and structure because people, need to know when they're getting out and their calendar and time.
Well, God did bring order out of chaos. I think that's how we got created.
Yeah. What would you recommend for them? How do they find their voice or their niche or the little parts of the service that maybe is unique to them and their calling and their gifting?
So if we can, let's back up a decade, 15 years. Social media was new. 20 years ago, we had to really work to find out what was happening in Carlsbad, California. You had to know somebody who knew somebody, get the CD or the cassette tape or whatever, or you fly to a conference, it's really expensive. So most of us had our nose down. We loved our community. We served our community. We didn't have bigger aspirations. Within a decade of social media, by the mid-2010s, all of a sudden we're watching every pastor we care about, Judah Smith, Craig Groeschel, Andy Stanley, you name it, Chris Hodges. We're watching the giants, and we're watching some niche pastors maybe that we've discovered on our own. What did we move into? The era of imitation. So then it was, if I just do this, like Pastor X does this, I'm going to have a great church. I think we were all, because this is a new exposure, trying to be somebody we were not. What have we learned in the last decade, from mid-2015 to today? We've learned we're not all going to go viral, that no matter how often you post to Instagram, we're probably not going to get 1 million likes or 1 million views on our YouTube channel, that not everyone's going to go viral. And I think that's disappointing and a relief at the same time. It's disappointing because there's a little part of us that wants to be famous. And it's a relief because it's like, all right, I can just be the pastor of this church. I can just love Nashville. I can just love my community. I can love this place I'm planting in that nobody's ever heard of. And I really believe this. Nobody can out-local the local church. Life Church might have 45 campuses, and I love Craig. I really do. He's a good friend. But he's probably not coming to your village, probably not coming to your township, probably not coming to your community. And if he does, great. There's room for 2 churches, right? So you don't have to worry about the competition online, because it's not really competition, and there are 8 billion people. But if you love your community, if you love your city, if you love your neighborhood, if you get to know the people, you were called to reach them. And if something happens at a wider scale, awesome. But don't start there. Just love local.
Come on.
Yeah.
So good.
Does that resonate?
It does.
I mean, you're more connected with this than I am, Mark.
No, again, I think the love for the local church, and that means the community, and again, the stories, and because every time as a pastor, Noah, you would say this, and Pastor Carey too, pastoring for so many years, when you see people in your church and you get to know them, when you see them, you don't just see them, you see their stories as well. Yeah. I get it on the front end. So I meet a couple that wants to launch a church, and I spend 6 months, a year before they even launch, getting to know them, the good, the bad, everything in between. And so whenever I see them in the future, I see their stories as well. And it just, there's just a supernatural love that takes place with that. And I would say that you probably experienced that pastoring. You experience that pastoring now.
Sure.
Well, and nobody can out-relationship the local church either, right? You shouldn't be able to. I mean, you built Way Church on relationship. You're like, we're here to connect people. And if we connect enough people, they're probably going to find Jesus. Did I misstate that?
No, that's, if I mean, you go where your friends are, It's like, you're going to move cities if you don't make friends. Like, that's just what we're seeing with young people is if they live in a great city with a great job, but they don't have great friends, they're going to leave. But if they live in a city that they don't like, with a job they don't like, but they've got great community, it's going to be really hard for them to leave.
Very hard.
So that actually, I mean, Pastor Dino, every time I'm around him, I hear him saying something about loving the person in front of you, and this is his mantra. Something that I would love your thoughts on, Carey, is you had a trend that you shared recently that Gen Z is in revival and retreat. I know that there's a lot of ARC pastors listening that have churches full of Gen Z, and they're asking, okay, I read the article, or I agree with that, even if they're just hearing this for the first time. Man, we've got a bunch of Gen Z coming. Now what do we do to steward this? What can we do as the local church pastor of so many of these Gen Z who have so much passion and so much excitement? How do we take this energy and let this be something that's for the long haul, not just for right now?
I think a couple things come to mind. One is there's a certain level at which you need to release them and to parent them at the same time. There's a lot of life issues. If you look at the brokenness in family, by the way, that's another trend that's reversing, is marriage is getting better in the United States, not worse. People are divorcing less often. There's more families with 2 parents than there were a decade ago, which is great. We want that. But a lot of Gen Z I know struggle with like, I don't know how to balance my bank account. I don't know basic finance 101. How do you date in this kind of a culture? I don't know. How do I meet somebody? How am I supposed to be? I mean, Noah, you just wrote a book on being a man, right? How am I supposed to be a man? What does that look like? So there's a lot of life issues, and you can address it from the pulpit. But I think if in your relationships, in your life groups, you're really helping to, quote, parent them or guide them, as well as release them, that's super helpful. And the young leaders that I've worked with, the Gen Z leaders, I find that they often need, advice that I have 2 sons who are grown now. But the advice I gave to my sons is the advice that a whole generation wants and craves. I had a leader of a major church in LA say to me last week, and he's not Gen Z, he's a millennial, but he came to my house as part of a cohort, sat in my backyard with 8 other pastors. And, I do not remember the exchange nearly as much as he did, but he was there for 8 hours. And he looked at me in the eye and he said, "You didn't just lead me that day, you fathered me, you parented me." And I might have 20 years on him, but that really meant a lot. You listen to people like Gordon MacDonald. He's in his 80s now, but when he turned 60, he was like, God called me to be a spiritual father to people. And so he had sons and daughters. And I think, I don't know, does that resonate with Gen Z that they need parents? And even if they had a good relationship with their parents may be in New Jersey, but they're in Nashville or they're in California. And so they don't have that kind of access. So I think doing that as part of the mentoring, part of the discipleship. Grant Skeldon has a really interesting paradigm too, because he says, mentoring is usually, well, where are we going to put this on the calendar? It doesn't fit on mine, doesn't fit on yours. He said, no, what are you doing? Come with me. Yeah. So if you golf every Monday, just bring somebody with you. If you have breakfast every Friday at this particular restaurant, invite someone new to your table. So I think that's infinitely more scalable than saying, wow, we need a whole new program. But I think when you do that with Gen Z and you release them, you give them a seat at the table, a voice at the table, and a vote at the table. Wow. Because something happened. When I was 23, people entrusted me. When I was younger than that, people gave me a stupid amount of responsibility. Enough not only to break myself, but probably the organization that entrusted me. And then somewhere along the line, my generation and those older than me kind of started calling everybody under 40 young. And it's like, well, we can't really have the young people leading the church, and you're too young to be a lead pastor. Man, I was young when I was the lead pastor. You were young when you were lead pastor. Like, come on. What is young? You read a lot of the famous poets, musicians, artists in history. It's like, oh, these NFL players are too young to be on the field. No, when you're 30, you're washed up in the NFL. You're exceptional. The Tom Bradys are the outliers. When you're 19, you're ready to go. And in the church, we have this idea that if you're 42, well, maybe in a couple of years you're ready. So I think you got to release the next generation, but you got to parent them at the same time.
That's great. So in your teaching, you were talking about the trends in the UK and how Gen Z is kind of leading that revival. Are you seeing the wave of revival even leaking into Canada? You mentioned maybe coming to Canada soon, and then the United States.
United States, yes.
Do you feel like Gen Z they are going to lead the way in that revival? And if so, maybe give us unpack a little bit more about maybe the 1, 2, 3 characteristics of why.
Yeah. So I hope they lead it, and I hope the rest of us catch it. When you look at it in the UK, church attendance for under 35s went from 4% in 2018 to 16% of the population in 2025. That's a quadrupling. And the younger adults, Gen Z and younger millennials, are now almost matching and outpacing their grandparents, 65 plus. So it's incredible to see. And I think what you're starting to see is a reversal in the decline of the church in the U.S., led by Gen Z. All the Barna data and other data show that. Although, on the macro level, there's over 70 million Gen Z in the U.S., a lot of them are still checking out. Because you had 2,000 people at the stadium event doesn't mean that you've reached 70 million. There's still work to do, okay? But it is nice to see that not everyone is walking out the back door. So I'm an optimist. So what's fueling this? Couple things. Number one, maybe a sovereign move of God. There have been a lot of leaders, boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, others, who've been praying for revival for years, for decades, and preparing their hearts. So I think it's kind of a divine partnership where God moves, but there has to be fertile soil. So I think we're seeing some of that. I also think that this generation, being digital natives, has seen what the culture offers, right? So you look at, where does cynicism come from? Cynicism comes from knowledge. The author of Ecclesiastes wrote, with much wisdom comes much sorrow, with much knowledge comes much grief. So why were we all so happy when we were kids? Because we were dumb. We were stupid. We didn't know anything. Yeah, she'll never break up with me. Boom, heart snapped, right? Like, oh, everybody's good. It's like, no. Oh, I'll never get fired. Boom, you're fired, right? Oh, marriage is wonderful. Next thing you know, she cheated on you. Your heart gets broken. Your heart gets snapped in the course of life, and that comes from knowledge. So you can become cynical. Well, think about a digital native. The information I was exposed to as a kid growing up in the 70s, in the 80s, very little compared to somebody growing up in the 2010s and 2020s. They've seen it all. I think the world has become more cynical, more toxic. The online environment certainly is. So I think they see what the world has to offer, and it's not shiny anymore. And they don't have hope. And they're like, I think the system is bankrupt. What else is there?
Yeah.
Well, good news, we have Jesus, we have the gospel, we have salvation. So I think the church is sitting on a gold mine, and Gen Z is waking up to it. So I would say those are some of the reasons behind the revival. And then the other thing I would say is, if you haven't seen it yet at your church, don't give up. Don't try to manufacture it. Don't try to hey, we're having a revival Sunday night. It's like, you can have a service. God brings a revival. So we'll see what happens.
I've always thought it was funny when churches schedule revivals.
Yeah. We've got one scheduled right now.
See?
And we're just praying that it happens. Because if it doesn't, we're going to be like, why did we call it that?
Other churches have done that too over the years. Elevation has done revival nights and that kind of thing. I don't think it's bad, but a real move of God can break out, like Asbury, the least likely place, they've got a history there. Not a particularly good worship day, not a particularly good sermon day, according to the preacher. Right. And God did something. Yeah. And I think we've all done that, right? We've all preached sermons that we thought were amazing, and they fell flat like bricks. Sure. And sermons that we weren't prepared for, and God used it in powerful ways. So I think we have to be ready. But, the other thing I would say is if it's happening, steward it, shepherd it. In Asbury, they put a council together. They tried to figure out, at first it was just like, wow, look at this thing. And then it's like, these people need food and porta potties, right? So you don't want to stifle it by being too organized. On the other hand, you don't want to just let it unravel or go rogue or go crazy. So I think, you look at Unite, you look at other organizations, they've done a very good job of trying to shepherd and steward what God is doing and not extend it beyond its natural life, but not suffocate it either before it's over.
That's great.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Unscripted. We want to take a moment to say a big, big thank you to Wesleyan Investment Foundation for making this episode possible. For more than 75 years, WIF has been partnering with churches and church planters to meet their borrowing needs. WIF provides loans that help fund spaces and places where ministry happens, empowering churches to expand their impact and fulfill the vision that God has given them. Whether you're dreaming about launching a new program or renovating your current space or preparing for growth, WIF is here to help make it a reality. Be sure to check them out on arcchurches.com/partners to learn more about how they can support the vision and your ministry goals.
As you were talking just about the different types of churches that are resonating, the different challenges that churches and church leaders are facing right now, I think one of those is for the pastor themselves, just being bombarded with wait, I'm supposed to be your counselor. I'm supposed to preach a sermon. I'm also supposed to, now the church is growing, which is exciting, but now I've got all of these different decisions that I'm having to make that I wasn't trained to do. I didn't know I was going to have to wear 18 hats at once. I thought I was just going to get to preach the word, To that pastor who feels overwhelmed right now, maybe with their own mental health kind of a struggle. I know that mental health is something that is really a hot topic conversation with people around the world, but I think pastors are not excluded from that conversation or having to walk through issues with that. What would your encouragement be to a pastor who maybe is struggling right now with just the load of ministry?
Well, since we're talking to church planters, there is a season, and it's short, where you are doing everything. Yeah. If you're like so busy with your sermon that you can't set up and tear down and move chairs, you shouldn't be planting a church, helpful. Okay?
In trouble,
you need to have that spirit of humility, and we're all in this together. But that has to be a season. Right? So you got a launch window, you got a launch period, you're going to escalate, you're doing fundraising, message prep, structure, your family's probably the kids ministry director, worship leader, and you're setting up and tearing down with the best of them, so you're first in, first out. Yep. Thing is, that's a busy season. Now, the problem that we have in modern life is our seasons have no beginning and no ending. It's not a season, that's your life. So you have to look at your launch window and say, I don't know, you pick the magic number, 3 months, 6 months after launch. I'm willing to pick up a chair. I'm willing to go to every meeting, but I got to draw a line somewhere because it's not sustainable. So even if you're leading 1,000 people, always be the person who's willing to say, I can be there early, or pick up a chair even ceremonially once in a while. Don't just travel with your entourage and your security detail and be like, oh, do I have to talk to actual people today? You don't want to be that guy. But the other thing is, as your church grows and as you get into it more, you're going to discover your lane. Yeah. And we all have a lane. Yeah. So I'm really a content creator and a communicator. And I really was able to boil down my job as we, scaled past 200 and 400 and 600 and 800 and 1,000 and, beyond. That basically, if the vision was clear, if the sermons were excellent, best of my ability, I don't know if they were excellent, they were best I could do. As long as I was focused on communication, if my core team was aligned, because when the staff is small, fit around this table, easy to line everybody. When they fill a room, it's a little harder. So it's like, well, who are my elders? Who's my executive leadership team? If we're good relationally, if we're healthy, if we're aligned, then I'm okay. And if the church has the resources that we need to do what we're called to do, then I have done my job. There are other people. I'm not a trained counselor. I will sit there and listen to a staff member that reports to me, say, wow, that's really tough. What can I do to help? But I can't do that for 2,000 people. I just can't. So you refer out, you let other people shine in the area of your giftedness. You are always willing to pitch in. But as I did that, a couple of things happen. And don't do this too soon. But if you really are scaling, like at your stage, Noah, it's probably going to feel very lonely for a little while because you're going to cut a lot of stuff out of your agenda. You're going to be like, well, I could do that. It's like, no, clear communication is going to be really key. Aligning that central team, having your elders aligned, making sure you have the resources and that the mission is crystal clear. You do those 4 or 5 things, Way Church is going to be fine. When you get distracted, you're taking 20 counseling appointments a week, way out of your league. I remember I dipped when our church had passed the 1,000 mark. There was a person at our church who was going through a really painful divorce. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to help. I made it worse.
Oh, no.
I thought we were going to get sued. I'm like, all right, that was the last time I ever did any counseling. Leave that to the professionals. I really tried to help, but I didn't help.
Wow.
So Noah touched on mental health and soul care mental health. The awareness of it the last several years has really increased, and there's a lot of resources. Now, though, and you just taught on this, and it's in your trends that you released. Now we're dealing with artificial intelligence. Yeah. And one of the most shocking things I heard you just teach our church planners and even say before was in a year, the main use of artificial intelligence shifted. Yeah. And now most people are using it for companionship. Yeah. Instead of, help planning a trip to Italy or whatever the case may be.
Let me test my sermon.
Anything like that. So can you maybe speak towards why do you think there was such a sudden change and the dangers and the cure?
Yeah. So if you do what we just talked about before, your mental health is going to be better. But if now you're prepared to serve your church. Here's the problem with companionship with AI. AI, as anybody who used it for more than 10 minutes knows, is incredibly responsive. It gets better every day. It progresses every day. I don't know that it gets better every day. It changes every day and has more power every day. And it's very seductive. Whether you use it, so the majority of people who create an AI character have a sexual relationship with that character. It's like porn on steroids. Not good. So, porn is inanimate objects or, picture or a video, but suddenly when the person in the video can talk to you and knows how you're wired and can seduce you, I mean, what real human spouse can compete with that? Yeah. It's so twisted and so weird, and there's no regulations around it. So you got that with mental health. And then, even if you're using it more innocuously, just like, oh, you're going to be my therapist. Well, if you see a real therapist, they have an hour, and it's like, oh, our hour's up. So time to go. We'll see you next week. Well, a lot of these AI platforms, and I'm not a cynic about it, this is just the way they're monetized. They're monetized to keep you going, and they're known to be sycophantic. So in that sense, they're just telling you, way to go, Noah, way to go, Mark. Like, yeah. Now, what else can I do? You ever notice your prompt's never finished? It's like the infinite scroll. Yep. It's like, do you want me to turn this into a slide deck?
So true.
Do you want me to turn this into a PDF? You want me to send an email for you? It's like, wait, no, I'm done. I'm done. Well, you start doing that relationally. This is now, if you look for it in the news, you'll see it. People have serious mental health issues. Claude, Anthropic, is trying to create ethical AI. They are now trying to put limits where they're training their AI. If it's like, wow, Carey's having this psychotic episode because of this interaction, they'll say, they'll cut me off, which is what we need. But again, this is an arms race. People are just trying to get real estate, trying to get market share, trying to raise venture capital, trying to beat China. So there's no brakes on this stuff. So I think we're going to see a lot of really, and when, even on a platonic level, if AI understands me, never has a bad day, is engaged and monetized to keep me engaged, knows exactly what to say, when to say it, how does my poor human wife stand up to that? Because she has bad days. Guess what? As a husband, I have terrible days. I'm not always a good husband. I'm not always a caring listener. If she develops a relationship with AI or with a chatbot, guess what? He's going to be smarter than me, in better shape than me, nicer than me.
Not better looking than you.
That's a little impossible. Little impossible. With all things God, with God, all things are possible. But no, like, what chance do we have? And then now think about that. We're all in established relationships. If you're dating, think about this. This is a trend. Okay, MIT is doing some research into this right now. But there are couples who are now, like, rather than me answering your question, I'm just going to pull up my phone, feed in ChatGPT. How should I answer Mark and Noah about how AI interferes with human mental health? Just wait, guys. I'll give you my answer. There are couples, I'm not doing that. There are couples that actually dialogue with each other that way.
Via AI. They're
sitting at the same table. But I'm not answering you. Wait, I'll get you my answer in a second. It's a mediated response. Like, and if you're a digital native, like, okay, so ChatGPT's been out for 2 or 3 years. In a year, every college student is going to be a digital AI native. And there's that whole debate about what's happening. But think about it. Even if you're on Tinder, which you shouldn't be, or other dating profiles, everything's mediated. So you start messaging someone, but you've run it through your AI first. It's like, oh, that's a way better answer. I'll send it to her. And then she modulates her answer and she sends it to you. And it's really, woo, this woman's amazing. And then you want to be more amazing. And then you meet in real life. It's got to be a letdown. Yeah. Like that. Nobody's like that. No way. Right? You meet there and you burp her or something like that. And it's like, I'm out of here. Like real life is, you know what real relationships are? And psychologists will tell you this. They are rupture and repair. What is your marriage? Rupture and repair. What is your relationship with your kids? Rupture. You go to the corner. Repair. I love you, honey. Love you, buddy. All right. So it's rupture and repair. That's every marriage. That's every friendship. That's every working relationship. If we hung out at this long enough, for a couple of days, there'd be a rupture and a repair, hopefully. right? That's just human nature. That doesn't exist in AI. We have this idealized version of ourselves. So what do we do as human beings? Well, what is the story of the gospel? Rupture, repair. Rupture, repair. Art imitates life, but the gospel, life imitates the gospel. So we have the real answer to people's hurt. It is the gospel. Yeah, you sinned. You messed up. You are imperfect. You are blemished. And behold the Lamb of God, who takes away the sins of the world. And you will fall again. You were telling me about a message, right? Like Jesus died on the cross for Peter. Then he came back. And he met him again. Said, all right, stop your fishing. Come back. I'm going to build my church on you. Do you love me? Right? Rupture and repair. So I think the church is sitting on the answer to the problems we're going to start facing at scale with AI. And, I'm not anti-technology, but it's inevitable. Like, a couple of years ago, there were Barna stats that were saying pastors think AI is of the devil. I'll never use it. AI is basically electricity. We're using it. If you're watching this podcast, it was modulated by AI. We didn't use it to produce it. But maybe in the editing, there's a bit of AI. I don't know. If you use Spotify, it's AI. You use Google Maps, it's AI. AI is everywhere. And you don't think today about electricity, but look at everything around here is powered by electricity, from my watch to our phones to these microphones to the lights to the cameras to the building we're in. It's all fueled by electricity. Your conference was fueled by electricity, but we didn't wake up thinking, how is electricity going to be today? We just take it for granted, right? 10 years from now, everything is AI. AI is electricity. We don't think about it. But in the same way that social media, a decade in, we're like, ooh, there are all these unintended consequences. There are going to be all kinds of unintended consequences, and some intended from AI. We should know better on round 2 with AI. The church should be ready, and we should be the rescue. We should be the repair. We should help people develop real relationships with God and real relationships with each other.
Come on.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Switching topics just a little bit. So you live in Canada, pastor in Canada, have for a long, long time, right? I think you've been a part of the ARC Canada conference. Awesome to see what God is doing through ARC Canada. I would love, give us a little update. Like, what are you seeing? Just like, what is God doing in the nation of Canada right now that you're witnessing?
More than before, which I'm really excited. If you asked me that 5-6 years ago, I would have said, next question. It was tough. It's been a bit of a desert. The one thing Canada does not have, and I've talked to a lot of U.S. church leaders about this, you guys have an infrastructure. I mean, you look at all the sponsors at ARC today, the ARC launch, you look at all the support you get. We don't really have those national organizations. So when we became post-Christian, it was like a lot of little outposts here and there, and we weren't really connected east to west, and we didn't have that infrastructure to help. So I think America is doing great with using its infrastructure to serve the local church, which is amazing. What we have seen through ARC, it's brought life. I would say ARC has been a spark in Canada, not to be clever, but the church plants that are really killing right now, disproportionately ARC church plants, which is great. And now we're starting to see, like good friend Brent Ingersoll on the east coast of Canada, King's Church, just seeing an incredible move of God there. I think we're starting to see things at Connexus Church now. We're starting to see things at established churches. There are churches in Ottawa, in BC, where over the last decade, we're really seeing things start to emerge at scale, led by next-gen leaders. Now, that's what makes me really encouraged, because, there was a time where all the leaders were aging out and 40 became 50 and 50 became 60. That's why I tapped out at 50. One of the reasons, there were several. But it's like, this needs to go to the next generation now before somebody taps me on the shoulder and goes, hey, have you thought about, right? So it's being led by a lot of under 40 young leaders, and that's what we need to see. So I'm starting to see real pockets of revival and joy and growth in cities and small towns, and I can't wait to see what's next.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. A big thing for me when my wife and I got plugged in with ARC, it was like, man, ARC, this is the route that you go if you want to start strong. Yeah. Something that we've learned over the last 3 years of being a part of the ARC family is that they really care about finishing strong as well. And so, some of our greatest pastor friends, some of our greatest mentors are a part of ARC, and it's constantly how's the family before it's how's the church. how's the relationship with the Lord before how's the ministry. To someone listening that maybe has started strong, you're in rooms with pastors from all different backgrounds, all different sized churches. What would your encouragement be to those pastors to finish strong? What are the practical things that they can be doing right now on a daily basis, maybe on an annual basis, to just stay healthy in the areas that matter most?
At the core, work twice as hard on your character as you do on your competency.
Oh, that's good.
So, right now you're listening to a podcast, which is great. You're an overachiever. Congratulations. Lots of strategy out there. And I don't mind giving it, but you really got to work on your character. And I think that's the process the ancients called sanctification. And the way I've come to define that, two things. Number one, are the fruits of the Holy Spirit growing stronger or weaker in me with every passing year? And the best judge of that are the people I live with. Tony gets to say whether there is more love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, and self-control in me today than there was a year ago or 10 years ago. I might think there is. Some follower on Instagram might think there is. But if she doesn't think there is, I have a problem. And I've really boiled it down to that simple formula. If those are the fruits of the Holy Spirit. So if the Holy Spirit is actually at work in my life and a growing influence in my life, then those have to be increasing. And the people who get the worst of you tend to be the people closest to you, right? Because you come home, you're tired, you're exhausted, took you 25 hours to get here, and then you're like, blah, right, on your family. And I did that for too many years. And then I burned out, and then I recalibrated my life. So, and the second thing is, it's a variance of things that John Maxwell have said. I want the people closest to me to have the best experience of me. So, I had a really rough travel day yesterday, as I just hinted at. But I was on the phone with my wife and with my EA, Katie, who's amazing. But she was back and forth with me. I think we booked 15 flights to get here. It was crazy. But, I tried to be of good cheer to her, and she was an incredible good cheer to me. It was her day off, technically. She had taken a day off, but she was back in her office just helping me. I don't want her to get a volcano of frustration because I'm stuck in thunderstorms. And old me might have done that. New me has to really pay attention to it. And I think the second part is you got to have those deep personal relationships. Who are your friends? Arthur Brooks talks about real friends and deal friends. So in ARC world, you can have a lot of deal friends, right? And that's great. And they could turn out to be some of your real friends. But he defines it as your deal friends are like, if I have a lot of friends right now because I do a podcast that has good listenership, everybody wants to be on, or a lot of people want to be on. If I shut down the podcast tomorrow, a year from now, how many of those people who wanted to be on are still texting me? Right. Those are your real friends. Yeah. Those are your real friends. And, when I stepped back from the church, we had 3,000 or 4,000 people who were affiliated with our church. And, if you follow Robin Dunbar, you can have 3 to 5 really close friends, 10 to 15 good friends, 20 people in your immediate circle, and then 150 other people you know fairly well. In that 3 to 5, out of 3,500 people, for argument's sake, you know how many friends I truly have at that church? 3. Wow. And that's not a failure. I can go in there. Sometimes it's hard to get out on Sunday. Everybody wants to talk to me. One of them's a medical doctor. He knows very little about what I do. I certainly cannot help him. He's a medical doctor, a pediatrician. He's very involved in our church and cares. But we're just friends. We just hang out. Yeah. It's great. I have a couple other friends like that too, that they've survived the career. And I'm useless. What does Arthur Brooks says? He says, they're useless but not worthless. They're useless because you can't help me grow my podcast, but they're not worthless. They're amazing. Like that. So you got to have those friends, and most of us don't have those friends. And as Henry Cloud would say, your wife and your dog don't count.
There you go. Now, I would love to get both y'all's input on this because you guys are way more theologians than me. But I will argue that self-control may be the vegetable of the Spirit.
Oh yeah, I wish it'd stop writing. Paul had stopped writing right before self-control.
Yeah, no one likes to tell themselves
nice. No. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, and self-control.
That's the broccoli.
No, I know it is.
It's the broccoli with no cheese. So, we've had a great conversation.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Is there any parting shot, little piece of encouragement that you would want to leave the church planters and church leaders that are listening to us today?
We need more. We need more of you. We need more church planters. one of the stats I shared is that up to 10,000 churches close every year. 3,000 churches are planted. That is not good math for the future of the church. So we need more church planters, and church planting sexier than it was a few years ago, but we need more young leaders to step up and answer the call. So if you've had the Holy Spirit prompt you, if you've been wondering, stop wondering. You're listening to a podcast, contact Mark, get in touch. They're going to vet you, okay?
Yep.
You will beat it out of them if it's not for them.
Correct.
Is that fair?
Correct.
About
That's
the process?
fair. Yep.
This is not like everybody who applies gets in.
Right.
But you got to at least test that and vet that. My dad, I don't tell this story very often. He's 85. At 40, he thought he had a call to ministry, and he enrolled in seminary, and it just about killed him. So he left and went and opened up a business and was very successful in what he did. But his son ended up going into ministry thinking he would never be a pastor. Why would I do that? So it might not be for you, and that's okay. But I think my dad looks back on his life and he's like, so glad I tested that out. And look how it worked out.
So true. We definitely need more churches, more church planners.
And we need capable people.
Correct.
If AI is going to take all the white collar jobs, lawyers, accountants, that kind of thing, why not be a church planner?
Why
Come
not?
on. Because the rest
Why
of your
not?
career is going away soon.
Let's go.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time. Before we do head out, best place to find resources from you, listen to the podcast, how can people get more connected with Carey Nieuwhof?
Well, we're in the process of changing our website, but it's careynieuwhof.com, or just search my name. Impossible to spell, so very searchable and findable on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on or watch. We're on YouTube too.
Great. Noah,
Yeah.
amazing co-host.
Hey, what an honor.
Hopefully we did Pastor Dino justice, since he couldn't be in on this one.
What a cool opportunity to ask the podcast host the
The-
questions.
the-
This was amazing.
the-
It's a lot of
Yes.
fun. It's a lot of fun having the mic flipped. Are you
Yeah.
kidding?
It is.
One of my goals is to be quiet 95% of an interview.
Wow.
So it's nice to talk for a little bit.
Wow.
It was great.
Thank
Great,
My wife
great
would say you
information.
enjoy that too much. Carey.
Great. We were all blessed by it, no doubt.
Thank you.
Look, Carey mentioned if we need more church plants. So if you are interested in seeing, am I a church planter? Where do I find out more? What do I do? It is very, very simple. Go to arcchurches.com. You can click on events and see all the upcoming launch event dates. We're going to have all the 2026 information out there for you to check out. Come to the launch event, the same event that Carey just got finished teaching at, same event that Noah and Maddie went through a couple years ago, and now you guys come back to help coach as well. So chances are, if you come in 2026, you may run into one of us there at the launch events, and we would love to see you. We need more church planners, so check that out. And thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of Unscripted.
At ARC, relationships are everything. We don't just plant churches, we build life-giving communities that transform cities for the glory of God. With ARC, you're never alone in the journey, and we want to provide practical coaching, resources, financial models that are rooted in generosity, help you plant a church, a large launch church, to thrive from day one. If you feel called to plant a church, you want to partner with us to plant more ARC churches, we want to help that. So join a network of more than 1,132 church plants, thousands of partners in the ARC family making a real difference. One community at a time, let's plant more churches. So visit arcchurches.com to learn more. Plant with us, partner with us. Together we can reach more people through the message of Jesus Christ. And it takes existing churches to be sending churches to plant new churches. Let's do it together.